What if you could have a career where the opportunities are as vast as our nation, where it's not about mission statements, but a shared mission? At U.S. Customs and Border Protection, we go beyond to protect more than borders. From ship to shore, air to ground, cities to local communities, CBP agents and officers are keeping people safe. Join U.S. Customs and Border Protection and go beyond for something far greater than yourself. Learn more at cbp.gov/careers.
4 o'clock hour, afternoon rush. Bobby and Mario with you here on this Friday. Tomorrow we have a college football doubleheader here on the station. We'll have Clemson and Georgia at noon, and then Charlotte, James Madison tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. That's a game. If you can't listen to it, you can always watch it on ESPNU, and our buddy Charles Arbuckle will help you on the call for that game. He was on the call last night for Wake Forest. Charles, good afternoon. How are you?
Hey, Bobby. How are you, man?
Doing well. Always appreciate you hopping on with us. Let's start where you were last night. Wake Forest, they do take care of business. Kind of took a punt return there in the third quarter to get them going. 45-13 over North Carolina A&T. We saw both quarterbacks. It was Bachmeier, though, who got the run most of the game. What was your takeaway from the Wake, though, QB situation?
Yeah, I mean, I think they still say the quarterback competition is open, but Bachmeier just looked a little bit more like the team responded. And maybe it was just, the thing with Michael Kern, I can't blame him. They just looked like they weren't in sync. They were starting to make some plays. He had a nice drive, getting them down the field to score. Missed on one long shot. I think the biggest thing is they want to have some explosiveness at the receiver position, and they've got two really good running backs, which I like, both of those guys. The part for me that they're going to have to shore up is the run game. And on the defensive side, they gave up a lot of yards to a team that had two really quality backs, and that offensive line did a nice job. And I think that's the teaching stuff you can take from that game. You're not going to show a whole lot the first game of the season, but North Carolina A&T came to play that first half. I thought they were competitive. I thought they did a nice job running the football and getting some rhythm and making some plays in the passing game against Wake Forest. And it forced Wake to play, and then when they finally showed up, Tyler Moore, and, when he was able to make plays, and then Donovan Green, and you saw just a lot of the names that we'll see from them this year. Their schedule gets a lot tougher, and I think the one thing that they wanted to see is could they make plays. They had a punt return that they haven't had, I think, in 6 or 7 years for a touchdown. So I thought for the first game, coming out of it healthy, that offensive line looked really, really good, both protecting and running the football. And I think Wake's offense is, already starting in the right direction, much better than it was ending last season.
Charles, ACC last night, they go 3-0, 2 wins you would expect, even though it wasn't as easy for NC State as you thought it might be against Western. Carolina survives after the missed field goal against Minnesota. We know what happened in week 0, but tomorrow, we got Clemson, Georgia, Miami, and Florida might be the biggest game. How big of a weekend is this for the ACC, do you think?
I think it's pretty big, especially after last week when one of your top teams lost to a team that I don't think people gave a lot of credit to in all offseason. I said, be aware of Georgia Tech. I'm not saying they're going to win the conference, but they're going to make it tough for people. And sure enough, they were able to expose that Florida State team. I think with Clemson, I'm interested to see Clemson because I think they're going to be much more explosive than we've seen them over the past few years. But it's against a Georgia team that on the defensive side is going to be tough, and then Carson Beck, who can really make some plays. So this is a good opportunity for Dabo to show that, hey, I don't need to go in the portal, which I think at some point he's going to have to change his tune. But he seems to be able to not have to do that like other teams have been able to do. I just think this Georgia team's got a lot of offense and a lot of defense. So if Clemson shows the Clemson of old, then we'll say, oh, okay. And especially defensively, they've got a couple of really nice young players on that defensive side that I'm interested to see play and how they compete against that Georgia team, which you can go to sleep and 20 years later, you'll still wake up. Georgia's going to have a running back. They're going to have a couple of guys that can make plays down the field, and they're going to have some dogs on defense. So this is a good test for Clemson. I'm sure they don't want it the first game out of the box, but it gives them a chance to test to see how good they are and who they are.
With Charles Arbuckle, ESPN college football analyst. Again, he'll be on the call tomorrow night as Charlotte takes host to James Madison at Jerry Richardson Stadium, an 8 o'clock kickoff on ESPNU. And Charles, the Charlotte team, 71 new players, third most. I think James Madison in the high 50s, I want to say. Obviously, new coaching staff for James Madison. So what are you expecting tomorrow night when it seems like two teams with so much unknowns?
Yeah, I mean, here's the one thing with Charlotte, I'm really interested to see Max Brown play at the quarterback position. When you watch film last year on, Charlotte, their offensive room was just not, quarterback-wise, was not good at all. They've got some weapons. I mean, they've got guys like Colin Weber and Bryce Kennan, the tight ends, are coming back. And if you look up front, I think they've got some guys that can match up. I'm intrigued by their running back room because they've got a few guys that can really play. And then offensively, they're skill guys. They seem to be better suited for some guys that can make plays down the field. Now, that's the one thing you have in the first game of the year. You just don't know how this all going to pan out. But I'm really excited to see Max Brown. And then defensively, whether it's Dre Butler or Des Morgan, Stone Handy, another guy up front that's pretty good. And then they've got some guys on the back end, Dante Balfour, who's, one of those secondary guys that can make plays. They're expecting a lot out of C.J. Burton. So they have some returners, but they also have a lot of new guys sprinkled in. And it's going to just be interesting to see how they hold up against the James Madison team that, what are they going to run? Defensively, they've got a defensive coordinator from Duke who was a co-defensive coordinator there. That's their coordinator now. And then offensively, you got to go watch film from Holy Cross. And I think that's the intriguing part of the first game of the season. And I saw this with Wake Forest. They didn't really know what to expect from that TSU-driven offense that Drew Martin had brought in. And they saw it early that there was a difference. There was a team that was a lot more explosive. I imagine James Madison is going to have some of the same and similar surprises that, Wake Forest saw from that North Carolina A&T team. And I think both of these ball clubs are looking for different ways to, hey, what are they going to do? How are they going to play this? The only good thing for Charlotte is that their defensive coordinator, Osborne, has, he and the offensive coordinator have a long-standing history, and they've been on staffs together. So I think there's some familiarities. So I'm curious to watch some of the cat and mouse games, but I would imagine that we'll see a heavy dose of Petaway, who's a UNC transfer to James Madison, and then their outside guys look like they've got some skill. But what is it going to look like in this new offense for JMU, which basically JMU has all left and gone to Indiana, and now you have a new version of JMU.
And, of course, Charlotte will actually be up in Indiana, taking on that team here a little bit in the later parts of September. Charles Arbuckle with us here on the Afternoon Rush. Charles, last night we also had Colorado in their first game. They survive against North Dakota State. Now, huge game for Shedeur Sanders, huge game for Travis Hunter. When you look at Travis Hunter playing both ways, would you give him a shot in the Heisman Trophy race if he's able to do that all year?
If he's able to do that all year, you got to give him kudos. I mean, my concern for him is how many plays does he have in him, because they use him a lot. And I worry about that a little bit, but also every time I worry about it, he goes out and makes plays, whether it's a phenomenal catch or an outstanding interception, pass breakup. He's not afraid to stick his nose in there. But it's 100-something plays every single game. And I know he's young. And I know he can do that. My thought even last year was how much exposure is too much exposure. Every time I think that, Bobby, I see him making a play. And I think people also cannot ever discount North Dakota State. Whenever you play South Dakota State, North Dakota State, Montana State, even North Dakota, you better be ready to play because those guys are very well coached. And I thought Colorado would have a speed advantage over them. But that didn't show up. They just played hard-nosed football and had a chance to win that game late in that game. And possibly if a couple of things had happened differently, they would have won, and that would have been a major upset this early in the year. But I think for Travis Hunter, if he is able to continue to play at this high level, and we saw it early last year, and make the plays that he has shown just over the last 2 years, and then even at Jackson State before he got to Colorado, I think we have to start putting him in that Heisman Trophy candidate because every single time you turn on the TV, you're seeing something spectacular happen. When he's not open, he's open. And even if he is open, he's going to make something spectacular happen. He doesn't seem to ever lose sight of the ball, whether it's offensively or defensively.
Charles Arbuckle here on the Afternoon Rush. Charles, last thing, your alma mater, UCLA. We know former Panther running back Deshaun Foster takes over as Chip Kelly bolted to be the OC at Ohio State. They'll be at Hawaii tomorrow to kick off their season. You know, Deshaun kind of made some waves, I guess, at Big Ten Media Day with his opening statement that he had there. But what do you make of Deshaun and what he's going to be capable of doing out there at UCLA?
Yeah, I like Deshaun a lot. I've known Deshaun a number of years. He was younger than me at UCLA, but, always admired his game at that level and then at the pro level. The good thing is he's kind of made fun of himself for the way that press conference went. But I will say this, that Bruin team's going to play hard. And the one thing is I don't know if up front they have enough in the Big Ten. I just do know they will compete at a better level, and they've already recruited much better than they did when Chip was there. Chip's got the opportunity now to go to Ohio State and do what he likes to do, and that's tinker and draw up plays and do different things and not have to be the head coach and worry about those obligations. But I think it's going to be interesting to see Deshaun in his first year as a head coach, having Eric Bieniemy on the staff. They're going to be physical. They're going to be tough. And I think they're going to give people more problems than we think. It's just I don't know how much they have on that offense and defensive line, and that's going to be one of the things you have to have when you're traveling all over the country and when you're playing in a schedule like the Big Ten. The only good thing for them, they don't have Michigan or Ohio State this year, but they have to go to Penn State. They've got to go to some other places in the conference that are always difficult places to play. They got Iowa at home, which is a good thing for them. And then Indiana is going out there, and that JMU coach tends to think that his Indiana ball club might be able to match up. So I'm curious to see how they play, and that's all you can do when you're looking for the first game of the year. Their first game is intriguing because you go to Hawaii, and that's always in the past when Hawaii's been good, they want to beat teams, especially those teams on the California coast, because those are a lot of players that didn't get to play at UCLA or USC or up at Oregon or Washington, and they have a chip on their shoulder. So it'll be a good first test for them. But I also think it'll be interesting to see over the next few weeks how they match up when they get to Big Ten play.
Charles Arbuckle, ESPN college football analyst. You can catch him tomorrow night on the call, Charlotte and James Madison right here in the Queen City. Charles, always appreciate the time. I'll see you out there tomorrow.
Hey, man, appreciate it, Bobby. Have a good one.
You too. There you go. Charles Arbuckle with us on the Afternoon Rush. We'll take a time out and actually wrap things up early on a Friday next 7:30 The Game.